see PowerPoint lesson 17.
All right. So just a recap, we just did the buying process and we spoke about emotions. That was part of customer analysis. Now we are going to have a look at competitors. And there will be a question on F1 that talks about competitors being Checkers and Pick and Pay. So we need to know the shape and nature of competitive markets. We also need to know a new concept called Porter's 5 forces model. We also need to relate the model and concept how the technology is shaping competition and the industry structure. So these are the things that you are going to come across throughout the lesson. We're going to come across commoditization, competitor analysis, competitor benchmarking, and obviously it's still part of situation analysis and marketplace. So here's an activity for you. Very exciting. Do you believe you are in competition with someone else out there?
Like personally?
Yes, you yourself. Do you think you're in competition?
Not at all.
Not at all. I thought
Not
everyone always say that. People say I'm not competing with anyone. Then all of a sudden you realize that you're actually in competition with someone.
No.
If you are looking for a job.
Fair point.
Many people are going to throw their CV. It's personal because you're using a CV.
That's unaware competition.
I know when people talk about competition, think of competing for a boyfriend, competing for, social status. Yeah, we look about all those things, but, in reality, we all compete for survival. It's just that you don't go out there and say, dude, we are now competing, But when one or the other, it's survival of the fittest.
That's true.
You want to date someone out there, you become a desirable partner. It means that someone was outlooked over you and you became the best, even though it wasn't a sort of a fair competition, like an open competition whereby 3 people are presented, then someone chooses you over other people. So I get why you're saying you are not competing with someone else.
Yeah.
All right. So can you please name the brand rivalries that you know, those that are competing?
The one you always like to mention, definitely Apple and Android. Yeah.
Okay. Coca-Cola and Pepsi?
Coca-Cola and Pepsi.
Okay, at least we're on the same page. And I can guarantee you, I can assure you, these brands, they've never approached each other and say we are competing. If you go and ask them, like I asked you, they will say we are not in competition with each other. But as consumers, based on what they are producing, based on how they do things, we know that they are rivalries. You get what I mean?
Yes, makes sense.
If you go to Apple, they will tell you that they're not competing with Samsung. They're not competing with Huawei. They just focus on the product that they're creating. If you go to Huawei, they'll tell you that they're not competing with Apple. So normally, even if there's a rivalry between our two parties, it's difficult for them to accept, to recognize the competition. Who do you think are the competitors for Boston Media House?
Varsity College, Gamblin. What else is there? Maybe after. Yeah, those are the ones I can think of.
Okay. So after this mini conversation that we've just had, why is analyzing competitors important then in digital marketing? Especially when brands are saying they're not competing with each other.
I think because then you also learn how to better satisfy your customer when you know, when you have information about your competition and you sort of position yourself better, you to achieve customer satisfaction. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. Because if customers are not satisfied, they will simply go to your competitor.
Yeah.
If Pepsi is not treating you well, you go to Coca-Cola or vice versa. Okay, this is pretty straightforward. So as digital marketers, it is important to understand that a key considering in developing an understanding of how to satisfy customers better than the competition, as we have just said. An industry is a group of brands that market products that are close substitute for each other. However, some industries are more profitable than others. Some are reasonably stable, while these others are highly volatile, especially the smartphone industry. That's why you see Nokia and BlackBerry are no longer there. The variance between industry sectors and specific markets is not all drawn to the abilities of companies within the market to produce customer satisfaction. There are various forces that shape the rules of competition. So these are 5 of them. The first one is the bargaining power of buyers. So we fight for buyers and want to have as many buyers as possible. But there's also the bargaining power of suppliers. I've come across many brands that fight for suppliers. For example, you've got farmers who are keeping chickens, and then you've got Nando's, you've got KFC. All of a sudden, KFC is having power over Nando's in terms of the suppliers. Nando's keeps running out of stock, while this KFC is having more supplies. I don't know if I'm making any sense.
Yes, you are.
So that also creates room for competition. Then the threat of substitute products and services. Yes, when companies are diversifying, as you are seeing with banks. Today you see FNB has got funeral policy, but it is a bank. All of a sudden, Standard Bank is also selling funeral policy because they don't want to be behind the competition. Then the barriers to entry. Sometimes it's difficult to enter the market because the competitor has established a full market there. Then the intensity of rivalry. So I'm going to explain all these in theory and how they link to digital marketing. Here I'm just explaining to you how these shape the rules of competition. So this is the Porter's 5 force that we're talking about. We spoke about the threats of new entrants. Think about how WhatsApp got into the competition and eliminated Mixit or BBM. You know, some of us used to be BlackBerry users and we were shining with BBM. All of a sudden, there was a new entrant and it took over the competition. So there's also the bargaining power of buyers. So there are questions there that you can see in red. How easy is it for business to set up a shop? How much power do customers have? Think about the power that the Apple customers have. How much power do suppliers have? Then the threat of substitute. How likely are customers going to switch to the alternative? And lastly, the intensity of competitive rivalry. How many firms compete and how much is the market growing? So you have this in your textbook. I'm not going to go through all of it, but it explains better the bargaining power of buyers, the bargaining power of suppliers, the threat of substitute product, barrier to entry, and the rival in existing competitors. I think it is in the textbook. Let me just quickly have a look. 47.
I'm not sure about the table, but they do go into great detail about it from page 70.
Okay. Page 70, 70, 70, 70. Okay. All right, I see. But that table can also help you because it summarizes that.
Yes.
So after this lesson, I'm going to leave these slides for you. So now, what is competitor analysis and benchmarking? Why is a competitor necessary? Why is competitor analysis necessary for brands? You've answered that. Do you think there are any rules to competition in digital marketing?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
There should be.
All right. We'll get to that. There should be rules, one or the other, and most of the rules are set up by the legislation. You do know that there's a competitor commission in the country? Do you know that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So competitor analysis and benchmarking of competitor use of digital marketing for acquisition and retention of customers is necessary because of the dynamic nature of the digital community. The digital age enables new services to be launched and elements of the marketing mix such as price, promotion to be changed much more frequently than it was traditionally. Copying of concepts and approaching within sector is rife, but sometimes can be controlled through patenting. So there have been lots of copy and paste. Think about the phones. It started with only one phone that had more than one camera. All of a sudden, most of these flagship phones have got more than 3 cameras at the back. And you end up having the entire back with cameras. There are so many examples that I can use. With mobile banking, it was only one bank that started mobile banking. Then some had to copy that. Please call me. There was only one network provider that started please call me. Then one had to copy and paste. But sometimes you can protect this by having intellectual property. Do you know about IP, right?
Yes.
Yes, all right. That's why you see Samsung taking Apple to court, thinking that they stole their idea, or you see Apple taking Samsung to court, thinking that they stole their idea. There are so many counterfeit products and goods out there, those that look very similar than the one that was produced by the original brand. So it is part of competition. Competition can be ugly, but it can be controlled through patenting and all the legislative laws that are there. The implications are that competitor benchmarking is not a once-off activity or developing digital marketing strategy, but needs to be continuous. We also have people in the industry who can steal your strategy. Do you know that? Who can copy your strategy?
Yeah.
There are actually competitors out there who would snoop and come up, they modify your strategy. You come up with a strategy because they are your competitor. They take the concept of your strategy, they look at the strength of the weakness of your strategy, and come up with the best strength that would outbid your strategy. But if it's protected, then you will be safe. So competitor benchmarking is a term used for structured comparison of digital marketing approaches of an organization's services within a market. Its purpose is to identify threats posed by changes to competitor offering, but also to identify opportunities for enhancing a customer's own digital services by looking at innovative approaches in non-competing brands. You know, nowadays I'm seeing most of competitions in the insurance sector. The moment Outsurance does something, Discover is now doing it. Momentum is now doing it. Dow Direct is now doing it. Budget Insurance is now doing it. So competitor benchmarking is closely related to developing the customer proposition and brand experience and is informed by understanding the requirements of the different customer persona. So the only ways you can differentiate or you can cement competitor benchmarking and making sure that you are outbeating your competitor is knowing the customer persona you have developed. I'm sure you and I can agree that the persona for Apple users and the persona for Samsung users are completely different, right?
Yes.
And you can always use that and focus on that so that you are not behind in terms of competition. But if you have got customers with different personas, those are undecided, it becomes difficult because today they are with Apple, tomorrow they are with Huawei. Their people are never loyal. Whatever that is cheap or whatever that is convenient to them, they use it. So benchmarking offers services different perspective with which serves different purposes. So when it comes to competitor benchmarking, you need to have internal capability. So you must have a lot of resources. Because sometimes when you're in competition, a competitor can have better resources than you. Then you can always be behind. You also need to know the different aspects of customer life cycle. You need to do qualitative versus quantitative research. You also need to target in-sector and out-of-sector. You need to know the financial and non-financial measures, and you need to know user experience to expert evaluation. So when we are going to do an exercise about competitor analysis, these are things that are going to be looking at, quantity versus quality. There's a brand that can offer quantity while it's another one can offer quantity. Quality while it's another one can offer quantity. During the day, I gave students an example that you can have a class of 10 students. 2 students have got iPhones. The first iPhone costs 20,000 rand and the second iPhone costs 15,000 rand. Then the rest 8 students have got Mobicel. All those Mobicels, they go for under 1,000. So which brand is selling more products?
Mobicel?
Mobicel, in terms of quantity, it has sold more products. It sold 8 against 2. But which one is developing more value from the product?
Was it iPhone?
Yes.
Yes, iPhone.
It's obvious it's iPhone because out of the total sales, iPhone is going to get 35,000, 20 by 15. But Mobicel is only going to get 8,000 because 8 students for a phone that is priced at 1,000. So it's always good to benchmark competition based on quality to quantitative. So in conclusion, as a digital marketer, it is important to understand that a key consideration is developing an understanding of how to satisfy a customer better than the competition. Because if customers are not satisfied, they'll always go to competitors. An industry is a group of brands that market products that are close to substitute. I've said that. And we've also spoke about the 5 forces of Porter, entry to the barrier entry, the bargaining power of suppliers, the bargaining power of buyers, and so on. And we also spoke about competitor benchmarking. Any questions?
No questions.
Okay, so let's quickly do a competitor analysis before we call it a night, because we've got about 30 minutes, but I'll be quick.
Okay.
All right.